Government of India, and Research Advisory Committee member in ICR, IIRR and IISS. He is also an Associate Editor-in-Chief, Plant Physiology Reports. Sir has been invited for delivering talks on rice yield enhancement and a drought through physiological approaches, and at the 6th International Conference on Plant Physiology held at TNAU Coimbatore, and carbon credit lecture at the CCAM Bangalore, and crop response to climate change, building resilience at Ignite Hyderabad. Sir has secured a new project on Quad AI, Engage Initiative Harvest, Holistic AI-powered agricultural response validation and early prediction system across territories. Sir has made an international visit on regard of the midterm review meeting of Indo-Netherland collaborative He's a member in the editorial board of Current Size Plant Physiology Reports. He has also given talks. Continuing, Dr. Mohan Raju B, Professor. He is a PG coordinator and Chief Warden, UG Boys Hostel. He is a selection committee member, and he has granted a patent of Frontiers Plant Physiology, academic editor in Associate Plant Physiology Reports. Sir has given an invited talk on improving combined drought and heat stress tolerance in plants in TNAU. Next, Dr. Savita Madappa, Assistant Professor, also Deputy Controller of Examinations, University of Agricultural Sciences, Bengaluru. Next, Dr. T.K. Nagaratna, Coordinator and Head PPMC, and she is also a Scientific Officer to the Vice Chancellor UAS GKVK. And Dr. Yamuna Rani, she is working as a women scientist, and Dr. Virupakshi, who is a National Postdoctoral Fellow. And these are some of the publications from the department. Comparative analysis of specimen processing method for spatial imaging in the journal Plant Physiology Reports. And overexpression of phytoglobin in rice leads to enhanced nitrogen use efficiency in a journal with an impact factor 6.3. And these are some of the publications from our university journal. And to inspire and nurture excellence in research, the university is conducting annual symposium, PG Science Week, and my beloved senior Ms. Devarintika MS has bagged an award for the best poster. To add more glory, our beloved seniors have also bagged awards from various conferences, including International Conference on Plant Physiology, Best Poster Award by Brahmesh Reddy and Subrita, and the Best Poster Award in IHC, Aishwarya, Best Oral Presentation Award, Virupakshi and Rachana. Rachana has also secured Merck Young Scientist Award. And seniors, Nandini has secured CSIR NET JRF and Anusha DS in Inspire Fellowship. And we wish a very good luck and a bright future ahead to the outgoing seniors, Devarintika, Monica and Rishita. And Dr. Preeti, who has served as an Inspire faculty, has gotten a job position as an assistant professor in Chanakya University, Bengaluru. Soft skills are the personal and interpersonal abilities that help us communicate, work with others, and manage ourselves effectively. To improve the soft skills, the department has conducted various soft skill development lecture sessions by Dr. Gurumurthy and Dr. Raju Sulanayaknahalli, Dr. by Dr. K.S. Shivashankara, PG Orientation Program by Dr. Uma Shankar. Uday Kumar and on the last week of this year, Concept 2025 was conducted on the theme Power of Plant
Now it's a high tea break. For the guests, the tea is arranged here, and for the rest, the tea and snacks has been arranged outside. I request everyone to have and be back in 10 minutes. Thank you.
ಫ್ರೈಡ್ ರೈಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಊರ
Yes, man. All good. India.
the list is ID number, name, email ID. Okay. Okay.
Dejo clase. Dejo clase.
Sir, when lecture will start, sir? 3:30?
Madam, good afternoon, madam. No, Friday VCS message madam. Leave for me. No problem, thank you. Friday original answer. Highlight media. Sure. ಇದು ಒರಿಜಿನಲ್ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಸರಿ. ఊరికే ఇంకేమా
ನೀವು ಕಾಲರ್ ಮೈಕಿದೆ ನೀವು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೀನಿ ಸರ್.
ನಾಳೆಗೆ ಆಳು ಬರೋಣ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ.
Once again, to our distinguished guests, Dr. Ganeshaya, Dr. Shashidhar, Dr. Nutan, Dr. Belwadi, Dr. Vasundhara, and faculty of UAS Bangalore, and those audience which are joined through the online to this program. Now, let's not delay as it's the time for the most awaited event of today's program from the esteemed speaker, Dr. K.N. INDA Senior Scientist UASB. On this occasion, I'd like to
No, on another, my Sandy, it is my pleasure to introduce and author, widely recognized for his contribution to genetics, biodiversity conservation, ecology, and environment. He served as a faculty at UAS Bangalore Department of Genetics and Plant Breeding. teach postgraduates at US Bangalore. Dr. Ganesha is a co-founder of that is Ashoka Trust for Research in Ecology and Environment, and has contributed several national level research advisory committees, including DST and DBT. Professor Ganesha has played a key role in addressing national and regional issue by leading large collaborative initiative on biodiversity conservation. He coordinated national teams to map biorich regions across the Western Ghats, Eastern Himalayas, and the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. He led a major national program on the Indian Bioresource Information Network, 50 scientists from more than 20 institutions to build a comprehensive knowledge base on India's biological resources. His efforts resulted in the development of national database on bioresources. He is a fellow of all the major Indian science academies, including INSA, NAS, IASC, KSTA, and is truly a homegrown scientist with over 7,997 citations and H index 49. As a researcher, he inspired many students and developed a large research group. He currently serves as an INSA Emeritus Professor and continues to teach postgraduate courses at US Bangalore. His contribution to higher education at US Bangalore is significant. He conceived the idea of a postgraduate symposium at US Bangalore and implemented it as a Science Week, a major academic activity in all the agricultural university of Karnataka. Beyond science, he is also a respected admired for blending science, history, and storytelling. We are honored to have him with us today.
Thank you, Ms. Nandini. Now I heartily welcome you onto the dais. What do you say?
Hello. ಬಂದೆ ಸರ್.
ಓಪನ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಆಗಿದೆಯಾ ಓಕೆ ಹಾಂ ಇದೇನೆ Am I audible? I don't think so at the end. Am I audible? ಇಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ ಇನ್ನೂ ಅವರೇ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ Yeah, I should say, first of all, thanks to the Department of Crop Geology. I think about 2 or 3 years back I was here, and my experience that day was that perhaps I went too much into the science, and people or students felt that my kind of person is not required for 31st evening to now speak on those hard science. So that memory perhaps influenced me this time to change my topic. In the beginning, I was thinking of speaking on a new concept called Golden Road, which is an historical concept. But then I felt if I speak too much on history, people might then comment that last year he spoke too much on science, this time he is speaking too much on history. So I thought I'll combine the two together. And what I brought today is too simple an argument, too simple a presentation. And now I'm feeling very embarrassed looking at some luminaries in the dais here. I never thought Fiji 31st evening or afternoon talk is going to be so famous. Next time, if I am called, next time I'll come certainly well prepared for a very meaningful talk. So let me you on why some cities are abandoned. And the lesson that I want to now derive to answer this question is from simple cell biology. Let me now go ahead presenting what I mean by abandoned cities. All of you know this Chernobyl city in Russia, correct? Can you hear me? Okay. All of you know this Chernobyl. This city was abandoned purely because of the nuclear disaster. All of you know about it. So the reason why it's abandoned is nuclear disaster. And can anyone tell me what is this city? This city? Let me see if our youngsters are really aware of our Indian geography itself. I'm giving you a clue. Yeah? Edapa? Yeah? Very good. Give me a big clap. That is Dhanushkodi, submerged almost cyclone in 1960. post office and all that, they were abandoned. I very well remember in 1964, my father came from Kolar and he told it seems overnight because of cyclone, a entire city was. That I knew, but only when I went there about 20 years back with my family, I realized what an event it is. Unfortunately, not many Indians know about it. I suggest all of you should go here. So this was abandoned because of cyclone, or actually cyclone ate off this whole city. So the first city is Pripyat, Ukraine. Second is Dhanushkodi, and there are number of such cities, hundreds of cities that have actually disappeared or abandoned. For example, let us say this Kalmanskop in Namibia. This was swallowed by the desert islands. It was a diamond merchant city, diamond preparing and diamond in a marketing city. For 250 years, it was a well-established city, but suddenly it disappears because they say sand dunes began to move, just like our Talakadu. Sand dunes began to come there. The question is, how could sand dunes suddenly come around there? So something else has happened. Take at the second one. This is Bodie, USA, a gold rush era mining town where everything was left as if people just left. You can also go to the Google and then get into the city's images. You will see that entire city is still there. You can go and leave, but no one lives there. Now, why is this kind of abandonment? So there are a number of such things, and why do people live just like that if everything is available? So these are the questions that would now rise against the examples that I told of either Dhanushkodi or Chernobyl. Take Hampi. Hampi is a vibrant city today, but do not forget, for almost 300 years, it was abandoned. Now, the reason people say it was abandoned, because in Talikota war, Bahmani Sultans and Vijayanagara kings fought. Vijayanagara kings lost the war, and so the city was abandoned. And they also say Bahmani Sultans came and even looted the city and they burned the city and all that. But when a war is held and when a king loses, only king dies or king loses, they will flee the city or they will abandon the city only when they cannot live in the city for long. A farmer will not go anywhere just because the king lost. Or a goldsmith will not leave the city because the king was lost. They will continue to live, but Hampi was abandoned. Why? Perhaps you will see why it is so. And generally, these wars are given as reason for the abandonment of the city. Here is another example, an exception. Jackson, Mississippi. If any of you want, you can go to the Scientific American paper in 2024, very recent. It says by 2100, thousands of cities in the United States might become abandoned. Now, one among them is Jackson, Mississippi. This whole city is abandoned, no people there, no one to occupy the places there. No war, no Chernobyl, no cyclone, and nothing of that kind, but nevertheless the city is abandoned. Why? Now it is these kind of cities that I think we need to now worry about. In other words, it appears that if one asks the question of why cities are abandoned, one question that we generally, one answer we get is like Chernobyl, natural or man-made disasters. Natural like Dhanushkodi or man-made like Chernobyl. But that is not always true for all the cities. Or people say wars led to the destruction of the cities and abandonment of the cities. As I told, only kings lose and they die or they flee, but common man does not flee. So locals may not flee, they continue to live. And if at all a city is abandoned, that means the locals also have left. That means there is some other reason for that. So we cannot explain, in other words, abandonment of all the cities by such specific events of war, by such specific events of war or of disasters. So we need to now perhaps develop a generic explanation as to why cities get abandoned, a specific mechanistic explanation. When I say mechanistic generic, disturb. A generic or physical explanation, when I say mechanical or very simple explanation that we can actually offer to explain the abandonment of cities. And for that, what I will do is go to the cell biology and borrow some ideas from there and see if we can actually explain the abandonment. Any questions by now? No. One question could be, why are you talking about this? blame this fellow. He caught me to speak on something, so I brought this here. Let us go to the cell biology and take a simple data on the cells. We know cells are small. You all agree with that? Now, prokaryotes are small like this, single cells. They are from almost 0.5 to 5 micrometers. Whereas if you take eukaryotes, they are slightly larger in size, and their size may range from 50 to 300 micrometers. That perhaps is on the larger size, larger side of the size of the cells. Now, if we happen to take all of them put together available on this planet Earth, all the cells, and find their size and make a distribution, you will see that it follows a positively skewed distribution, meaning most of the organisms are having small cells and very rarely there are large cells. Now, what do we mean by small? I always have a problem of recognizing what is the meaning of micrometer. So I went back to the Google and I found that if I take a pen and put a dot on the paper, and that if I consider as the period or the dot, 1/500th of it is the size of a microbe. That is, divide the dot into 500 equal dots, and the size of each of them will be the size of the microbe. That is around, let us say, 0.5 milli, sorry, 1/500th of the 0.5 millimeters. That's around 30 micrometers or so. So we all know what the size of this general cells is. However, though most of the cells are very small, there are exceptions. For example, this Ventricaria ventricos has a cell of this size. And all of you know, ostrich lays eggs as big as this, or dinosaurs lay eggs as big as this. They're all single cells, they are all very big. But they are not the cells that are actually living like a regular cell that can reproduce, grow and multiply and divide and all that. So we will now perhaps keep those aside. The normal organisms that are growing and reproducing like bacteria or algae all have small size cells, and most of the cells are very, very, very tiny. As you can see, 1/500th size of the dot is the size of most of the cells. As I told, if I now take the size of the cell on the x-axis and distribute how many organisms are there in different categories, you generally find a positively skewed distribution, suggesting that most of the cells are in the range of 50 to 75 or 100 micrometers in their size. There are exceptions, that is on the right side, but very rare. Now, have you ever questioned why cells have not gone beyond this size? In other words, we see that proportion of small size cells is very high and very large cells are very rare. And then there is another feature of the cells that we should also remember here. Let us say a particular species of Chlamydomonas has evolved with a particular size. Around that size, it doesn't vary too much. It will be completely uniform around it. In other words, intra-specific variability in the cell size. Within the species, variability is very, very, very little. In other words, if I take one species, the variability will be highly restricted so much. So also variability is less. Most of the cells will be only within that small range, etc. There will be less variability within each group. You all agree with me? Yeah. So interspecific variability, if you now take, it is positively skewed. Most of the cells are very small. Within each species, cells are very, very uniform. They don't change their size very much at all, right? These are the two features. Now, how can we explain these two features? If we can explain the solution for, give an answer for these two features, perhaps we'll have a solution for why cities are also getting abandoned. Let us see how it is. Let us take the first question, why cells are very small. Now, if I tell you why cells are very small, you will all laugh. Oh, it is so simple, but let me now go through. Now, why are cells very small and why are they so uniform within that to other situations such as cities? I will not go into pollen grains and seeds. One can also now extend this, but this is not the place where I will be now talking on. So these are the elements of the talk today. Now, why are cells so small? Let us take a cell of this size and let us allow it to grow to the larger sizes, bigger and bigger. Now note that whenever a cell has to survive, it has to now derive oxygen for its survival. Oxygen has to come from the surrounding environment. And how does the oxygen go in? through the perimeter to the cell membrane, and the cell membrane is porous, oxygen enters through that. So also resources, it could be water or nutrients or whatever the resources, they all have to go into the cell through the cell membrane or the perimeter of the cell. Now what happens when the cell grows? The volume of the cell goes on increasing, correct? What happens to the perimeter? Also increases, isn't it? Also increases. Now once consider a very big cell, volume has tremendously increased, perimeter also has increased, but the question is whether the perimeter or the surface has increased at the same rate as the volume has increased. Now please note that oxygen and other resources enter the surface, enter via the surface into the whole cell, and those resources such as oxygen is required based on the volume of the cell. So the demand is proportional to the volume of the cell. How about the supply? Supply is proportional to the surface area or the cell membrane size of the cell. Are you all with me? So the supply of resources is proportional to the cell surface area, whereas the demand is proportional to the volume of the cell. Now keep this in mind and let us see what happens. When we observe the cell size, area and volume parameters, the following happens. Consider a cell or a circle whose radius is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Radius is increasing. What happens to the area? We all know pi r square. So the area goes on increasing from 3.14 to 78.57. Look at the number of times increase in the area or the volume. I'm only talking about the area. Volume will be much more because it is cube. Okay. So in other words, there is 26 times increase in the volume when the radius increases from 1 to 5. Are you all with me? So the volume is increased 26 times. How about the perimeter? Look at this. Perimeter is given by the equation 2 pi r, and if you now calculate, perimeter increases from 6.2 to 31.3, the increase is only 5 times. So while the membrane of the cell grows only 5 times, the volume grows 26 times. Already told that the amount of resources required for the cell depends upon the volume of the cell, whereas the flow or supply depends on the surface. Now, as the volume is increasing, the demand is increasing 26 times, but the supply is increasing only 5 times. Can the cell survive? Precisely. In other words, area increases in this proportion with increase in the radius, whereas perimeter is a linear line because 2 pi r is a linear equation. And if you now divide area by perimeter, perimeter to area, as you can see, goes on reducing. The perimeter to the area goes on reducing. That is, the surface area with respect to the volume relatively goes on reducing. In other words, the amount of supply available for every unit of the volume inside the cell goes on reducing. So if cell size goes on increasing, the supply goes on decreasing, cell cannot survive. And that is the simple reason why cells cannot be too big. Are you all with me? Okay. In other words, oxygen supply to every unit of mass in the surface. Yeah.
But the surface area of the sphere, if you look at the cell,
The proportion will be approximately in the same way because it's a cube. You know, volume also, I've only taken area here and the perimeter of a circle. If you take a volume, the volume increases by cube root, surface area increases only by square. So the proportional difference goes on increasing. Okay. For the understanding, I have taken only the surface. Okay. In other words, the resource supply, especially oxygen, nutrients, water, and such things, for every unit of mass in the cell goes on decreasing with increase in the size of the cell. As a result, with increase in the size, oxygen supply decreases, nutrient supply decreases, very large cells cannot survive, and thus cells cannot be very large, and that's why we have very small cells. That's why the distribution is very small, and we don't have a cell as big as me or you. If it was possible, maybe we could have all survived with only one cell and not study physiology at all. So in other words, these are not possible, only these are possible. Yeah.
the same reason why most species have the smaller size seeds.
I will come to, seed and pollen grains, As I told you, there is a similar argument we can extend to, but we will not discuss upon. Okay, we can perhaps have discussion later. However, there are large cells. For example, if you take the cells like sperm cell, red blood cell, etc., their size is very, very high. Though they are also partially skewed, they are very big. How are they surviving? If you carefully look at them, it appears they are surviving red blood cells are not spherical, they are exactly a circle. Okay, here what happens, you see, not only circle, there is a depression there, because of which what happens to surface area increases. In fact, whenever the red blood cells are described or explained, they say it follows a donut shape, but I like to now change that word donut to vada shape. Because our textbooks told donut. I had not seen donut at all. I was heard on donut shape. I didn't know what donut is. Imagine if our teacher had told us vada shape. How easily would have imagined, isn't it? Okay. Only when I went to America in 1993, I came to know what donut is. So I think we need to know perhaps change this. So red blood cells are vada shape, and in other words, our ladies knew about the relation between volume and the perimeter much before I tell you. Why? Look at this vada. They put a hole in between. You know why? When you put into the oil, the perimeter is more. Every part of the vada is. You see, ladies will understand that. Okay, unfortunately, cities are not of this shape. Cities are of the shape of a circle. And so in other words, when we now ask the question why cells are very small, we know the answer. You all agree with me? You are all with me? Any questions? Yeah.
Why cancer cells keeps on
Which is a different thing altogether. And if you want to talk on that, we have Dr. Shashidhar here. He can perhaps give 1 hour talk. Okay, that's a different thing. Okay, fine. The second question is, why are they uniform within each species? Remember, that was the second thing. If a particular species has evolved with a particular size, the variation around that is very, very small. Now, why is that variation very, very small? Okay, that is the question we would like to. For example, here is the data from a Chinese group on a cell called Chlorella vulgaris. The mean size is 4 micrometers, and the total variation is only within 1 to 1.5 standard deviations. Okay, they're all normally distributed around the mean. The variation is just around 1 to 1.5 times standard deviation. So within a species, the variation is very little, but that variation could be now constant over other species where the cell size is larger. If the cell size is larger, around that increased size, the variation again will be small. Are you all with me? So against or around a chosen size, variation is very, very small. Why is that? Of a particular size, chosen or evolved size is there, and it now starts growing. Of course, we already know perimeter to area or the surface area to volume goes on coming down. It becomes difficult for the resources to flow. That is one argument. However, for the cell to maintain the metabolic activity, even if resources are flowing, inside the cell, note that the cytoplasm is increasing, as a result of which the chemical composition goes on decreasing. Concentration of chemicals of proteins and all that goes on decreasing. Pardon? Dilution. When there is dilution, chemical activity and metabolic activity cannot be as much as it would be when the cell size is small, number one. Well, why not proteins produced in more abundance? The production of proteins is proportional to the amount of DNA available, because the transcription has to happen. Transcription can happen only on that single segment of DNA that is available in the cell. And so when the transcription is limited, translation is limited, proteins will be limited. So the total production of the proteins will be now limited, but the cell size or cytoplasm is increasing and the cell grows. As a result, what happens? The dilution effect leads to reduced metabolic and catalytic activities. As a result, cells will now turn to dividing so that the original size is now maintained. In other words, after cell divisions, they begin to grow. When they grow, cytoplasm volume increases. That leads to decreasing perimeter to volume ratio that we already saw. In addition to that, rate of production of proteins and catalysts and chemicals is limited by the amount of DNA available. So there is a limited transcription that can happen. That transcription rate remains constant, and as a result, rate of message flow from DNA to ribosomes or to protein production also now remains limited. As a result, the protein production is constant, but the cell volume has increased. Concentration of proteins and catalysts decreases. As a result, metabolic activities also get reduced. Senescence sets in. When there is no metabolic activity, cytoplasm cannot be maintained, senescence sets in. And to prevent the senescence, the only way is bring the cell size back to the original. How do you do that? Divide, cell division. So in fact, there is a paper here you can see if you want. People are now telling that you don't need anything else for division to be now triggered. Just the decreased concentration triggers all these activities. Cell goes on dividing. So in other words, we now know that cell division is also to maintain the cell size to solve all these problems. Okay, I mean, cell division is for other purpose also, but it is triggered by all these activities also. In other words, cell size is maintained to the uniform cell size in that particular species by this process. Any
The cell size of the animal cell can increase if the water into the cell increases.
okay.
So, do you think that the cell division in animal cell versus the plant cell is controlled by the volume of the cell by pumping water inside?
I have no idea, but this particular paper says that one does not even need to look at any other regulatory mechanisms. Those regulatory mechanisms can be switched on purely by the relation between the protoplasm size and the concentration of the catalyst or the metabolic activity. He has an answer.
Cellular organization has to be somewhat unique to given species for relative, positioning of very different cells.
Exactly, yeah.
Parts. Even if they prokaryote, there is molecular family, right? Although they may not have compartments like eukaryotes. There is this so-called stochastic chemical reactions
Cannot happen. Yeah.
Scale. If they are not spatially organized, like your photosynthesis 1 and 2, they have to be positioned exactly in that place. Otherwise, you cannot have photosynthesis. These are subject apart from each other. So that spatial organization fixes the cell size and volume. It has to be inherited exactly the same way.
Yeah.
So that also keeps them even.
Yeah. In other words, all these things suggest that as the cell size goes on increasing, lot of internal alterations happen in this, in their structure, format, and positioning and all, leading to the triggering of the cell division, which brings back the cell size. Okay. So my science is over. I'll come to this implication of that little later. So simple lessons we can draw from what I so far argued is that cell size is limited by because of perimeter to area ratio. You all agree with that? Okay. And number 2, cell maintains their size, otherwise they die due to lower metabolic activity and all the disturbances that we can visualize. So these are the 2 essential elements of the lessons that we can borrow from cell biology. Now, how can we extend this to abandonment of the cities, these lessons from cell biology? Consider a city. A city also is like a cell which requires oxygen from outside. What kind of oxygen? Your resources, your grains or water or whatever it is, has to flow from outside that particular cell. For too long you can't exploit, you can't grow in your backyard and live. So you have to now depend on the resources grown outside your city. For a moment, go back to Harappan era, where there were no flights, no trains, no buses, no trucks. Only human beings were carrying the food and all that from one place to other place. What happens then? Survival of the city depends upon how much of the area surrounding it can supply resources to that particular city. You are all with Ragi from Bangalore to Harappa, because it takes years together at that time when there were no trains and all that. So within a short distance only you can transfer, and so the resource supply zone for any city is just a small band around the city as shown here. The supply zone is the perimeter area, not the perimeter area around the city. Okay. Now you already might have guessed. What happens as the city grows? As the city grows, city size is increasing, volume is increasing, but the perimeter size is relatively, perimeter increases, but relatively less or more? Less compared to the size of the city. As a result, the amount of food you can now prepare and supply to the city will be now reduced. And you can't get the transportation from far off distances, especially in the old times. For that matter, even in the present time, you can't get simply everything from far off distances. As a result, what happens? Demand on the supply of resources surrounding the city increases. As the demand increases, the fellow who produces the product puts more value to that, rate of the resource material increases. So the fellow who produces resource material gets more profit. He now starts growing more and more of it. As you start growing more and more of it, ecological loss of the environment, resource loss in the soil, soil erosion, soil depletion. So the whole of that area becomes depleted. As it depleted, its productivity further goes down, further reduction in the resource value. As a result, the city will not be able to get more resources. As a result, the people in the city are abandoned and the city collapses. Just as a cell cannot grow beyond some size, purely because of the same physical principles that we can apply on a city some size, it collapses. Pardon me?
He made four structures. One is in Making Circle.
I know.
One
Yeah.
is in the Lal Bagh. Another two, I'm not very sure, sir.
Yeah.
But Bangalore city has grown 30-40 kilometers away from there.
Yes. Yes.
He did predict what you are saying. But why is the city of Bangalore still?
Aren't you paying more for the resources today than when comparing out a period?
Yeah.
You are. Yeah. Aren't people already trying to move like Ganesha, moving from Jakkur to? Okay, I have already moved out of Bangalore. I'm sure many are also willing to now move out of. As a matter of fact, Vasundhara is sitting here and Nutan is sitting here. They also came to a place where they are staying today because they wanted to have a peaceful life there. But that also is now occupied, correct? So this change is going on. Nevertheless, the principle is true. What is that? As city grows, demand for resources from the surrounding area goes on increasing. Though areas further get exploited, they become almost spoiled or environmentally disturbed areas. Further resource depletion, cities might get abandoned. Okay. In other words, to summarize, as city grow, the resource supply area to the city area, that is the perimeter to volume area, goes on decreasing. Also note, unlike in a cell, in a city, population density increases. Right? People from outside start getting into the same area, density increases, so the demand increases. So as city grows in size and density, per capita resource supply decreases, supply area is overexploited, cities collapse or abandoned because of that. Okay? Simple lesson from cell biology. But do we have evidence for this? Let me see if I can. Let me again go back to the Harappa Mohenjo-daro era. As I told you, in Harappa Mohenjo-daro, we didn't have trains or trucks or buses or anything by carts. If you are a rich guy, by cart. Otherwise, you have to rely on people transporting from the head. As a result, you see, Harappa Mohenjo-daro, hundreds of cities have disappeared. And I propose that something like this has happened. Of course, there are theories telling that there was climate change, the earthquakes, and so the rivers got changed. The rivers got changed might explain how Saraswati civilization might have moved away from Saraswati, but hundreds of cities away from Saraswati rivers also got abandoned and they started moving to other places, perhaps with the same reason. And if you actually carefully go back into the geography of Harappa and the city structure, you will believe what I'm telling is very correct. Let me tell you what I mean. Now, before that, now what is this? This is a huge water tank by the side of Dolovira, Harappan city, and that's where the water was being stored for the entire city. And from there, water was being let through another small passage into wells like this all around. Now look at the wells, the steps of this well stops here, and there is a depression there. You know why? The water gets into this water is the natural water. That water is allowed to settle, all the dust settles here, but people are not allowed to get down below that, because if you get down, you will be dirtying the water, and it will be dirty water also. And so you are supposed to harvest only from here. So the water for domestic purpose was being harvested from these wells, to which water was coming from the main tanks that were built all around the city. Let me give you the structure of an Harappan city written by historian. Let us say this is the citadel. Citadel means the central place of majestic, or where is the New Year today? Shivaji Nagar. Commercial street, okay. Let us say that is a commercial street of Harappa Mohenjo-daro. Now surrounding that there are markets. I have gone there and I have seen that literally this is the structure. These are the markets and market shops all around with a street on either side. Now by the side of it are these wells to supply water to this citadel and to the markets. And where are these huge tanks are situated? By the side of it on either side, huge tanks. And if this is a city, all around it is agriculture. So this agriculture supplies resources to this water source is supplying water to the city, and this was the structure, and this is all that a city can survive with. If at all it demands more, you can't get resources from outside and the city will collapse. Look at the structure of the city as written by the historians. Citadel, marketplace, water storage here, water storage here. Now agriculture was there, but today the painter has put only trees there because it's all dried area. Why? It's all overexploited. The agriculture was overexploiting, the soil was eroded and city got disappeared. City was abandoned and you still see these abandoned areas all around it. So very clearly you can see symptoms of the argument that I so far told to suggest that Harappan cities perhaps have faced the same kind of fate that I was trying to explain. So each of these geographic units behaved as if it is a closed world. I get my resources only from within, let us say, 1.5 to 2 kilometers of my living, and resources can only be transported from a limited distance. So as the city and population starts growing, resource demand increases because of the growth of the city, surrounding area becomes exploited, water, food and other needs are reduced, demand for the city cannot be met with them, and so the city collapses. I guess Hampi also has perhaps faced a similar problem. War might have happened, but I would say in the war these people lost also because they didn't have strong resources to supply the military, and so they lost the war perhaps. Now if you actually, how many of you have gone to Hampi? Please raise your hands. Yes, all of you, fantastic. If you go to Hampi, you might have seen everywhere rocks and rocks and rocks. Have you seen? Why is that there is no greenery at all in Hampi? Please note that in Hampi, in the one among the biggest or richest empires in the history of humankind, after Rome, historians say Vijayanagara was the richest empire, and that was also the cost of the survival. Why? In that city, there were 2 lakh soldiers, and there were anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 elephants. Imagine the amount of vegetation required for each elephant every day. Imagine 1,000 elephants every day eating so much amount of greenery. Every tree in the whole of that area must have been cut off. And the people living there have to get their, firewood also. There was no gas that time. There was no HP gas system. So gas also was to be met by the dried plants and trees. So all that was cut off. Hampi is purely full of stones because the vegetation is cut off. Vegetation is gone and it is not even allowed to recover as of yet. And that's why perhaps city was abandoned, not because of the war. Where is the evidence for that? I'll show you the evidence. Today, as the city started picking up the tourism, there is now fresh growth. And remember, water was not a problem at all for for the Hampi city. Tungabhadra is a fantastic, 364 days live river it is. But the reason why it disappeared is because of the war. Realizing that there is fresh hopes in the cultivation and all. Let me give you other physical evidence to now show that my argument perhaps is true. This is a Beijing city. This is the satellite image traced from 1990 to 2016. Now compare this with the diagram I wrote, city in the center and supply zone. All this yellow color here is the agricultural crop system. that was supplying resources to this city. You can see that. But by 2008, you see what has happened? All that is gone. So the surrounding area that was supplying resources is dried up. Exactly now fitting to the argument that I was talking about. And so Beijing city, when actually this Olympiad was held, they draw a new plan for the Beijing city to create forest all around, and they are now trying to, like green belts we had in Bangalore, they are now trying to do all that around Beijing. Yeah. Yeah, the pa? Ida.
Here,
Ah.
city is growing.
Yeah.
Therefore, supply zone is coming down, or supply is.
Now, what was in 1992 under supply zone is now destroyed. Whether city grows or, you know what happens when the agricultural land that cannot really give any good yields, they will now abandon, and so city people will come and buy it. I will not be able to survive because my agriculture is not paying me. I would rather sell it off and then now make living out of it. Yeah.
What made people to pick that area as a city?
Yeah, which one? This one, huh? Okay, okay. Well, this comes to what is called as self-organization. Shall I tell that answer to the end? Okay, I don't want to cut off. In fact, most cities are a consequence of random deviation and self-organization. I think I can talk about it. So now let us come to the last example. I will end my story with this, but this story is a bit long. You have to bear with me. This story, I think Belwadi was with me. Bangar. Yeah. I had been there to this place, and I found this place a fantastic example for an historian to now study. So I went on digging around this city. Now this is the picture you get when you go to this place called Bangar. Not now, after the talk, you go and put Google Bangar. This is one among the top 10 haunted cities in the world. Haunted towns, okay? It's abandoned, haunted. People say there is ghost there. We heard a lot of stories. If you go there, in fact, there is an archaeological board. People are not allowed after 6 o'clock. Why? After 6 o'clock, devils come there and they will haunt you. And people have have actually tested this by daring to go inside. And they have heard a number of voices. And what those voices and all that, you please Google on your own and then find out, okay? So this is the city. This actually is a palace of the princess who was cursed by a magician. We will not go into those details. Now, this is another view of the city. You'll see entry fort houses, of course, are now abandoned because they have all fallen. Fort, and you see, this is the marketplace where diamonds were being sold. Beautiful stretch of roads. This is not rebuilt. This is all 1700 or 1600 roads and buildings built strongly during that time. Now, I also want you to note that this Bangar is here. This is Gujarat. Bangar is here. Jaipur is just about 60 kilometers from there. And there is a reason why I am telling about Jaipur. Okay. Now, from here onwards, you have to be a little more careful in analyzing this. This city that I am talking about from a satellite is located here. This white patch. All that white patch is those buildings. Okay. Can you see a line here? That is the fort of the city. You can see how big this fort is. So the fort was protecting it, and that fort is what I showed. This fort, all around that fort, and so that fort was protecting it. Now I have given a blown up area of, view of the same city. You can see another fort entry and administrative building, and somewhere here is the palace of the queen, temple. No one worships anything there, but the temple is still intact. Occasionally, some well-minded people like Belwadi, they go and put lot of banana there and lot of monkeys around there. They come and collect it. We in fact saw that scene. Parts of the palace completely dilapidated. Look here, how strong the pillars are. All that is abandoned, overnight abandoned. And this is the princess palace, which is abandoned. The story goes in a very different way, and apparently this princess, as usual, most princesses are very beautiful. She was very beautiful, and so there was a guy who wanted to marry her, and so he sent a magical oil to her to now apply to her hair because she was fond of these perfumes and all. But the moment she was applying, she came to know that this guy has cheated her, and so she doesn't apply. She goes and curses that magician, and now that magician puts a curse on her that lest your palace and city and the whole thing be destroyed, and so the city was destroyed. This is the story that people say around. Actually, what has happened is very interesting. Now, this is another view of the market. See how beautiful it is still. Let us go into the history of this. The city was established sometime during 1523 by this famous king called Bhagavan Das, who was ruling Jaipur palace. He had a number of sons. The first two among them is Pratap Singh and Madhav Singh. Pratap Singh was given the Jaipur fort. So Madhav Singh apparently this Bhagavan Das decided that he will build another city for Madhav Singh. So he built this city in Bangar.
New Year,
advance
New Year wishes, Madam
Now, this grew as a mega city. Madhav Singh was a very intelligent man. He started now putting competition to Jaipur. So he attracted lot of these merchants from Jaipur. How did he do? He provided free residence and free marketplace and transportation to Jaipur. That time transportation is by chariots and horses and all. So free transportation like the Karnataka government for ladies. So no charge at all. So much and protection for them to now travel around. So a lot of these facilities were given. People started pouring in. Free everything. I only have to get the business done and pay a proportion of my business to as taxes to the king. So lot of people began to arrive there, and that's why lot of these marketplaces were built. And then suddenly in 1783 it disappeared. Now, as I told, I have gone into this details of the city's fate. Let me go step by step and see what actually has happened. So the entire city has only two water sources. One among them is this. Both of them are by springs. Rainfall is just around 100 millimeters there. You can't rely on rainfall. This is a spring source well, and from here the water was being drawn to the entire city. Where is this well located? Now, if you see carefully, this is a city and the water source, can you see a dark patch here? That is a water source, and the marketplace was here. That is a marketplace. So, what happened was, water was drawn from here and was supplied there. There was another tank created for the water to be drawn to the market people and their residences. So, this was the setup. The businessmen were very happy. They went on accumulating. More and more markets were built and more water was used. Gradually, water became a demanding thing. Water could not be now met, became insufficient for all the merchants to use, and so they had to find a new source of water. So more and more added as the water was available, more and more people came there and more demand for water, and so they have to find new source of water. I have reduced the whole thing here. This is a city. This is where that water was going. As you can see, that is where the water was going. Please note, there is a river here and there is a dam there. There is a dam there. Now, water was trapped from this place as Bengaluru is trapping from Kaveri river now. Okay. So, water was trapped from there and it was brought and it was again market people were happy, more businessmen came and king started getting more and more tax. He invited more and more people accumulated. Water was there, but now the food demand increases. The food resource also was demanded. The people all around felt that there is more marketing for the food than water. Water is being given by the king. So let us now grow food and give to this, sell at a high rate to the city people. As I told you, remember the red zone, okay? Now, this river, go back, and that is a dam, go back and you see the agriculture began to flourish around the city, around the river. As agriculture began to flourish, they used the water from the river, water level in the dam went down, so water supply to the city went down, people are producing the food, people are getting the food, but there is more demand for the water. And gradually as the water decreased and also as the food was demanding the water, total available water to the city went on reducing. But the king is still promoting it. More people, density is increasing and all of that is getting destroyed. As a result, what happened? Greed of taxes resulted in an overgrowth, demand for food increased, As the demand for food increased, water was diverted, upstream for food production, and so water level went down. Water became a scarcity. Exactly during that time in 1723, 83, what happened was there was a huge famine in the whole of that area. It is called Chalisa famine. Why it is called Chalisa famine? In the calendar of Indian calendar system, that 1783 is called as 1840 Vikram Samvatsar. 40 is Chalisa. So 40 famine. So that famine came about. It's a famous, you can also Google it. Which was already suffering from water problem, faced more problem. No merchant could now live there. They all abandoned the whole city and left the city to be now dilapidated. This fort was abandoned. In other words, Bangar became today a haunted town, not because of any devil or otherwise, because of the devil of the overgreed of the king to now invite the merchants and to feed them water and resources, which led to this. Okay, come back to my model. You will now believe that may not be exactly in the and resource and exploitation, cities get abandoned because of this. What is the solution? It is not that I am now proposing a cell biology theory to city. It appears people have already thought about it. And so they're arriving at a new design for cities. And here is a new design source. Here is a source for that. Now, what is this design? The city here is the spiral or growth, and in between forests and agriculture, you see 4D is agriculture, 4C is forest, etc. So grow your city with the forest and all around. What happens to the perimeter to area ratio? Is maintained because perimeter is all around the growth of the city. And if you carefully see, note that this design seems to be almost similar to the neural cells system that we saw, which has managed this problem of perimeter to area ratio a long time back in the course of evolution. So it appears, if at all we want to have a sustained, long-lasting cities, circular growth of cities is not the solution. Perhaps, yeah?
Like Bombay.
Bombay is perhaps now learning it, but in general, we need to now grow out as an extended arms of the city, and that perhaps is the way we can survive. Thank you very much.
The curve that you put between the predator and the prey. You know, the prey levels are high and the predator levels are low, and they increase, that decreases, and there will be an equilibrium sometime.
How can the equilibrium reach when the predator is increasing? Predator being the...
But that's right. So predator increases, eats away the prey.
True.
The prey level comes down. It comes down. These days it starts dying.
You see, there what happens, there is only one unit, but here in addition to the volume, the density also increases. People want to know get in, and so they don't see what happens tomorrow. Today I want the salary, here I want to, I want to become the head of the department of physiology. Whatever happens tomorrow, I don't want. So I come to Bangalore.
You can only go 3 more years after.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
What kind of cities have you planned? Like, these are any first?
Auroville? If you see the diagram there, they are planning Pondicherry, Auroville exactly in the direction. Whether it's all driven by this or by architectural aesthetics, I don't know. But they are.
Like when we are going to know that now this time we have to divide. But in case of city, how we are going to do that?
Unfortunately, in cities, there are only politicians like what we have got today, who will only fight for who should become chief minister and not when city should be divided. I don't know if any of you are aware, there is this new development going on now in Bangalore, not the satellite city. In fact, the concept of satellite city also came about because of this. Yeah. But we don't have the trigger. We don't have the signals to now indicate that, yes, this is it. He says balance. Balance will never be reached. There will be always no break points. At the break point, someone has to decide that now enough growth, we have to now move out. But no one will decide that. Vote bank.
So
Yeah, ಹೇಳಿಪ್ಪ ನೀವೇನೋ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ.
Cape Town is also facing.
Very true. In fact, number of examples. Cape Town, California is also facing the water problem. Lot many cities in America apparently are facing this problem. As I told you, that article says 2,000 cities are likely to be now abandoned. Yeah, someone?
I just want to add.
Yeah.
The tendency because of technology can bring resources from faraway places. Like example of Harappai cave. Those times there was no technology to bring resources from faraway places. But now we can bring. But problem is they are also depleting the resources from those places. Those places.
And the cost of supply.
So in a way, Indian economy, what we talk about, fully self-sustaining economy within a small region, is what we should follow. I think New York did once. New York City, whole New York City and the New Jersey state was developed as a, because New York was going too large and actually wanted to move as much as possible to all the the industries and everything away from the New York.
Okay.
So in a way, it's like a twin cities.
Okay.
Or twin state, New York and New Jersey.
Okay.
But that's again.
Yeah.
Again, that's also worth it.
Yeah. Any other questions from the student side? Yeah, ಹೇಳಿಪ್ಪ.
This might feel like a silly question.
No, nothing is silly. My talk itself is very silly. Yeah.
But why didn't the kings think of building water harvesting structures since they were generating a lot of revenue? They could have thought of that. I mean, abandoning a city for the sake of non-availability of water.
I can give answer in two ways. Number one, technology was not available. Number two, as we have politicians, there also the king was only worried about the tax he gets, and that king was in 1520 or whatever it is. He is dead. Further kings are simply continuing it. So management problems, and plus to build these new strategies, you need time. The famine has hit overnight, and the water problem was being faced gradually. We have this ability to adjust to the new problems. So they were adjusting perhaps, but the famine killed everything, and the tipping point turned to the abandonment. That's the way. Yeah.
What do you foresee the consequences of Bangalore city after 50 years?
I am very happy. All of you, please, youngsters should give a big clap to him. Now, it is not his question, it is not my question, it is a question of all of you. You all have to keep this in mind. Who knows, some of you might become the mayor of Bangalore or secretary of Bangalore BDA. So you should have this in mind and seriously think of now breaking the growth of city, not only horizontally but also vertically, and maybe now shift it to other places. The best thing that can happen to Bangalore is shift Vidhan Saudha from here and don't allow any politicians to stay here. Automatically everything goes out. Am I correct? Yeah. Automatically everything goes out. No, but that is only transit. That's a summer palace ಇದ್ದಂಗೆ. ಹಂಗಲ್ಲ, ಇವರು ಪರ್ಮನೆಂಟ್ ಪ್ಯಾಲೇಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲಾದ್ರೂ ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಬೆಳಗಾವಿನ ಹಾಳು ಮಾಡೋದು ಬೇಡ. ಇವನ್ನೆಲ್ಲಾದ್ರೂ ತಗೊಂಡು ಯಾವ್ದಾರ ಕಾಡಲ್ಲ ಹಾಕೋಣ.
The central government is in Canberra, that's the capital city. But hardly there is anything except the politicians. Rest of the other thing that happens in Australia are elsewhere.
Exceptions. No one goes there. So there are exceptions that maybe it's a strategic problem of actually where to construct the city and all that. Yeah.
Similar case added to that, there was a Travancore Raja. Travancore Raja in Kerala. So when he saw that Bill going Mecca, he caught some serious talk and landed in Lakshadweep. So again he came back to his kingdom and he's announced that whosoever goes to Lakshadweep, they'll give free land rights and no tax, something like he announced. So majority of the people from Kerala, they have reached to Lakshadweep. They were Lakshadweep also developed. So such even those were days there were kings also pretty intelligent.
In Hampi it happened upon. Yeah. People were not coming to Hampi. So if you come and till a piece of land, you have to only pay the cost of the land. For 10 years you don't need to pay the tax. That was what Hampi kings also declared. So there are these kind of strategies. Yeah, they're all
That's a very good analogy. Cancer cells are not normal cells. It's not good. What he was talking about, all the normal cells which are naturally evolving and self-organizing cells. So this size is an evolved phenomenon, right? And cancer cells are basically abnormal cells. They are easy cells. For the rest of the body, cancer is easy. Why are they growing so large? Because they're only thinking for themselves. Similarly, PG in Bangalore are cancer cells.
Yeah. Nanda. Thank you.
Sir, I still have a question.
Yes, Apal.
You said self-organization.
Okay, why cities grow in some area?
Right. You have any city which is self-organized?
The Silicon City. It wasn't a city in the beginning. Someone set up a software company.
It's a large, time span, sir, not short window, like 10 years, 20 years, or 30
No, Silicon City is almost 3 decades old now.
Not even 3 decades. Beyond this,
We can't get the history. Anyway, most of these things happen like that. There is no reason why Bangalore should have been Bangalore, no reason why Mysore should have been Mysore. It just happens that some Shesha wants to set up a small hotel there by the side of a road, okay? By the side of a road. So when he sets up the hotel there, and when there is a good, let us say, lot of lorries stop there. Now when lot of lorries stop there, he has to now provide take lot of people to now serve in the hotel. Where do those people live? So there will be a small house built for them, and those people need a shop. A shop comes about there. When the shop comes about, lot of other people also will start coming there and shopping there. So like that, one after the other, the things start evolving. It's not that open hotels, one succeeds like that, and that begins to grow as a small area, small town, small city. So all growths of cities, all origin of cities is purely a self-organized process. Yeah.
Workshop place, it was built of same concept. Initially, there was some Ayurvedic treatment shops were established in the beginning, historically. Now it has completely cosmopolitan.
Where is this?
Varkala place in Kerala.
Yeah.
So when we think of Bangalore, for a minute we forget Bangalore. I was thinking New Delhi that is accumulating a lot of power over the rest of the India.
Yeah.
So do you think that should change for progress of the rest of the India?
Okay. We are now asking a different question, which is more of the administrative facilitation than the city's growth. City growth, if you now consider, we don't know, we don't even have data to now assess when is the tipping point is reaching in a particular city. We don't have. Those studies are hardly there. In fact, this kind of thinking itself is not there in my view in analyzing the growth of cities, and it's not there. So if you now start applying this, then people will think, oh, we have to now look at a point where the surrounding area begins to now exploited. So that element, those parameters have to be developed. Those are not there.
Saturation points.
Yeah, saturation points. We don't have those studies going on at all. Yeah.
Several civilizations came actually across the
Rivers
and then they went up. How do we relate those?
It's the other way, sir. Civilizations come up only by the side of the rivers.
Civilizations come only with the water, but you are right. They also now lead to this. Let me also tell you, don't be under the impression that the world civilizations are very romantic. And only today we are facing the garbage problem, pollution problem. Imagine a small hermit of rishi, half a dozen rishis. Where do they generally do? As you rightly told, on the sun pond irutte, a pond sutlu avaru hakontare avara huts na. Hauda? Now they also have to pass. They also have to pass. They also have to cultivate. All that they do around there. When the rain comes, what happens? All that is washed into the pond. The pond gets high nitrogen because of their, right? And that high nitrogen leads to the death of the pond. I don't know how many of you have read Kalidasa's Shakuntala. Yeah. If you carefully see Kalidasa's Shakuntala, there Shakuntala writes a love letter to Dushyanta. You know how she writes? She's sitting by the side of the pond. We are all given with a beautiful picture, a beautiful pond, beautiful lotus leaves there in the pond. And she plucks the lotus pond, and from the right hand side, small finger's nail, she writes, Naan aridalaltu ninnaya manasamam madananadodu irulum pagalam da it goes. Forget it. Now look at this. She now takes the leaf from the pond. When would a lotus plant grows in a pond? When there is a lot of nitrogen. That means Kalidasa's Shakuntala pond was already polluted. It's only pictured to us like a beautiful pond. So problems were there always.
But unfortunately,
Yeah.
the architects had only limited people. Unlike in Bangalore, if you want to allow that to happen, employers would become a slurry.
ಲಿಮಿಟೆಡ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ ನಾವು, ಲಿಮಿಟೆಡ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, 20 ಜನ ಋಷಿಗಳಂದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೂ ಹೆಂಡತಿರು ಮಕ್ಕಳು, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟಿರ್ತಾರ, ಅವರು ಬೆಳಿತಾರಲ್ಲ. 1,000 ಆಗ್ಲಿ, 1,000 ಆಗ್ಲಿ, ಒಂದ್ ಸಣ್ಣ ಪಾಂಡ್. Please, madam.
There are many cities in the world, Singapore, Hong Kong, Bangkok, where they do not have an agriculture for their sustenance or good water facility.
Yeah.
Still they are flourishing. What could be the reason?
I can simply answer your question by telling Amma, 1 kg of rice in Bangalore and Singapore you compare in terms of the equivalent money.
I understand. But
Alva,
still
that means they are paying more because the system is so well built that the economy is not dependent on agriculture but on other things of industry, software and all that. They can afford to buy things from Bangalore. So they are all...
people who can afford can stay.
Obviously. Yeah. Yes. That is the answer. Amma.
They don't give you.
Hampi lost its glory because of resources depletion. But after the war, the winner takes took all the effects. The people, the soldiers were also reduced. But the resource stayed same, and the number of people and elephants they reduced.
Elephants did not stay there; they were all taken away.
They were taken away. By that point, the Hampi should survive.
Resources
were same.
You see what happens. As long as the king is there and can arrange for the flow of resources, people will stay there. When the king disappears, the area is exploited, no resources are flowing, even people cannot stay there because of lack of resources. I told you if the king loses, people will stay as long as the resources are coming. But here, resources are exploited now, and then the king dies. In fact, I argue that king also dies because the soldiers didn't have too much of energy and strength to now survive against the Sultan, I mean, Bijapur, Bahmani sultans. So in fact, if you want to now read more about this, please read a paper in current Vijayanagara Empire, okay? Author K. Ganeshaya, you will see that. Okay. Yeah.
I think there's one more question.
Yeah, Elipa.
So for almost 200 years, it supplied resources. Suddenly, why can't it supply?
As I told you, gradually it was happening, gradually it was happening. 250 years. You see, in the beginning there is no problem. It goes on. In fact, people were invited. French engineers were brought in to construct the tanks in Hampi area because of the water source. So all the developments were done. It went up to the level that it reached almost the Rome's richness. People started pouring in from all over the world. It is then that the things start happening. It is then that actually the decline also started of the the survival of the whole area. See, what happens is we generally say in the war someone loses. For him to lose, his army should be weak. An army will be weak when they don't have food to now eat well. Okay, so that kind of situation had reached already in Hampi. We now talk very high of Krishnadevaraya and all. Krishnadevaraya was actually in the declining side of the Hampi's empire. You kelsa madi ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹೆಸರು? I'll remember your name. You read that paper and then come. You will perhaps discuss it. Okay? There was a question. Yeah.
Resources have been decreased, but if some well-to-do family are able to move out to some other places, so some poor families can still sustain on the available resources.
ಹೌದು.
The already stabilized city can still sustain.
There were some people still surviving there in the vicinity of the city. There were, and that's how the what is that capital, the central elements of the capital. But here and there farmers very rarely ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಒಂದು ಕಡೆ ಎರಡು ಕಡೆ ಇದ್ರಮ್ಮ ಅವಾಗಲೂ ಕೂಡ they only took Robert Sewell to show that there is some broken wall here. So there were people to now survive, but not You know, the population of in Hampi once upon a time was 4 lakh. Among them 2 lakh were soldiers. Imagine ಆ 2 lakh ಸೋಲ್ಜರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಊಟ ಮಾಡೋರು ಎಷ್ಟು, ರಾಜನಿಗೆ ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡೋರು ಎಷ್ಟು, ಕೋಟೆ ಕಾಯೋರು ಎಷ್ಟು. ಸೊ ಆ ಈ ಹಂಪಿಲಿ ಇದ್ದವರೆಲ್ಲ ಒಂಥರ ಅಡ್ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟ್ರೇಷನ್ಗೆ ಅಟ್ಯಾಚ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದವರು. ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಕೆಲವರು ಮಾತ್ರ ರೈತರು ಸುತ್ತಾಗಿದ್ದವರು. ಅವ್ರು ಹಂಗೆ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು ಅರೌಂಡ್ ದಿ ಸಿಟಿ. ದೇ ವರ್ ದೇರ್ ಅಂಡ್ ದೇರ್ ದ ಪೀಪಲ್ ನೌ ಸ್ಟಿಲ್ ಓನ್ ದಿ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಅರೌಂಡ್ ದೇರ್. Yeah. It had the potential. It had the potential. Only thing is, at that time, it was exploited. The productivity was less. People who want to cultivate also were not interested in the beginning. It has now recovered, and then Hampi was recognized as a tourist center. And by that time, you know, the area also was recovered. Nutrient level had improved. Now people are now doing that. Huh? ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಇನ್ನು ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಕೂಡ ಒಂದು ಯಾ ಅದರ ಹೆಸರೇನಪ್ಪ ಪಕ್ಕದ ಹೆಸರು ಹಂಪಿ ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಕಮಲಾಪುರ ಅಲ್ಲಮ್ಮ ಅಲ್ಲ ಈ ಕಡೆ ದಿಸ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ರಿವರ್ ಏನದ್ರ ಹೆಸರು ಅಲ್ಲ ಅಂಜನಾದ್ರಿ ಅಲ್ಲಮ್ಮ ಅದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಆನೆಗುಡ್ ಯಾ ಹೇಳಮ್ಮ. Undisturbed areas ಅಲ್ಲಿ I agree, but who is the exploiter ಅಲ್ಲಿ? ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನ್ಯಾಚುರಲ್ ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆಯಮ್ಮ. If something grows, maintained in the natural ecosystems. It may not happen like this, okay? Whereas illi, it is a human-dominated ecosystem who are not the producers. The producers become the dominators. When the predators, it dominates, predators come and they dominate. So there is a cycle, as Shesha rightly told.
The KRS dam, we have some experiments where we get the data. The KRS dam, from the day it was built till today, the capacity has remained exactly the same. I was hoping that it would decrease because of silting. But it has not silted at all much in that place because the water flowing comes through all rocky places with not much of silt. Interesting. But what we are looking for is the amount of water that is flowing out. We have data of every day how much water came out from the left bank, right bank, river, and capacity, height, everything. But the people who are dependent on water for agriculture in the
is increasing.
4 times it has increased.
Yeah.
And these days are growing rice, and if I tell them we can grow rice with less water, they'll understand that, but they will never implement it. This is related with the extension.
Yeah. There was a question somewhere. Yeah.
The wealthiness of the Vijayanagar Empire is also related to the cultivation of sandalwood during that period.
Is also, but the growth of the city was related to not only sandalwood, spices, diamonds, and all. So there were 3-4 resources that led to the emergence of the Vijayanagara Empire. It is not Krishnadevaraja who built and all. It is the availability of sandalwood, availability of spices, availability of diamonds in that area, and also red sanders. Name of Pushpa 2 cinema idella. That red sanders also was one among the resources. In fact, if you carefully plot the map of Vijayanagara, it encompasses all these 4 resources. Kings were very intelligent. They now started having rights over these resources and exploited those resources, sold it to the Western people, bought gradually as it happened, control over the sandalwood went down, control over the diamonds went down because in Kimberley in South Africa, diamonds became much more quality-wise better and they posed a problem. So the buying capacity of Vijayanagara for the horses and guns also dwindled because of this, and so Vijayanagara became weak, plus this exploitation and resources. So Vijayanagara, that's how it is. Yeah. How come? I am retired, no job, I sit and
And we also correct in the cancer cells.
Yeah.
Any abandoned city which is repopulated after?
Wow, good question. In fact, Hampi is one such example. Hampi was, abandoned, but it's getting repopulated. Today, ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಆಚೆ ಹೋಗಿಂದ ಯಾರು ಹೋಗ್ತಾಯಿಲ್ಲ. ಇದು ನಮ್ದು, because the Chernobyl is not yet ಇದಾಗಿದೆ. They are, but not yet.
Detroit is again
Detroit coming back. In fact, I want to give that example. There is also
They are showing all the animals growing there without any problem.
See, in front of our eyes, there are examples, but people are not really getting lessons out of it. Yeah.
Sir, I have a question.
Ah.
Sir, what about the adaptive strategies to stop the city collapsing? Because in Harappa, there has been evidence that they shifted back from water-intensive crops to millets. So how far do you think that that will go?
I don't know this. My name is
Sir,
Huh? Siri. Siri, I like to now get this example. That's very interesting. It is true that the millets came later to India, like ragi, jowar, and all that. But did they actually adapt the millets like jowar and ragi because of water problem? Sometimes what happens, the coincidence. They are also facing problems and the millets came. I would say because they had water problem, they adapted this. That is one way. The other way is they got the millets and they adapted. The water was not required. They could move out. We don't know what the fact is.
Sir, how effective do you think this will be to stop?
They will be very effective, Amma. They'll be very effective. I don't know in Harappa culture what led to what. Whether this pulled that or that pushed it. We don't know. Yeah. I don't know at least. Yeah.
But many people are into so there is an internal conflict between Shaivites and Vaishnavites. Also one of the reasons. So since they were giving more importance to Vaishnavites.
There are two kinds of reasons I see, Appa, for any of these kind of things. One is, I'll tell you. One is historical reasons. Illa antandre wars. That is historical. Unfortunately, no one has looked at non-human based, resource based problems yaru yochane madilla ivarige. The only example I know of, for example, let me also tell you. And the nimsha time ideppa. Okay. You all know about Khmer kingdom? Allah, Khmer. This is in Cambodia. In Cambodia, these kings established the Khmer kingdom sometime during 9th century by a king called Jayavarma II or so. Alirorala Indian kings. In fact, that is a talk I want to give. Yeah. Then what happened? The Khmer kingdom went on growing. In 14th century, suddenly the Khmer Empire, that is the Angkor Wat, Cambodian Angkor Wat, it's a huge city going up to almost 1,000 square kilometers. Please believe me, Cambodian Angkor city was the first largest city after industrialization anywhere in the world, even before Western cities developed. And this Angkor Wat was much larger city than even Hampi, even before Hampi established into a big city. So in 14th century, suddenly the city collapses. Again, historians attribute this to a war that happened between Thailand people and Cambodia people. 1341 ಬಂದು ಅವರು ವಾರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಸೋಲ್ಸ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತು ಅಂತ. Australian team of scientists have examined now. They have found that it is not because of wars that the Khmer kingdom collapsed. It's because of mismanagement of water. There are a number of evidences for that. I wanted to give that as a talk, but that takes a long process of argument of establishing the growth of the city and all that. ನಿಮಗೆ just Google ಮಾಡಿಯಪ್ಪ, Google Scholar ಅಲ್ಲಿ Australian scientists have, and also French scientists. Ring data, crops being cultivated there. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಗೊತ್ತಲ್ಲ, Angkor Wat city is a hydraulic city. They used to get water from hundreds of kilometers. And one among the tanks that they built is second only to the wall of China, Great Wall of China, because it can be seen from the satellites on the top. It's so big. You know its length? 18 kilometers into 3 kilometers. Can you imagine a tank of that size? That is the kind of engineering they were doing. And no wonder, because they have built the largest religious temple in the entire world, spread over almost 4 square kilometers. So that kingdom collapsed because of mismanagement of water. Water on which they built the city itself led to the destruction of the city. So there are a number of such examples. Yeah,
Large cities also produce a lot of waste.
All cities, yeah.
So the waste, we have never given any such importance for managing waste, because the same waste could have actually replenished the soil, whatever depletion could have actually happened.
Very true.
Hasn't that been ever
in any of these civilizations?
No, I am not known about this, but you are very right. I remember one thing I learned when I started teaching in Germany. I teach a course in agroecology, and there I was talking about at one moment our Indian agroecosystems and told how in the village side, ತಿಪ್ಪೆಗಳು ಗೊತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಆ ತಿಪ್ಪೆಗಳಿದ್ದು, and that's where people used to now obliterate and in the morning and all the German students started now bending down their heads. Then I asked why after the class with my mentor professor who was taking the same course with me. In Germany, they don't use the human waste for the crops. A civilized country like, so-called civilized country like Germany thinks that is nonsense. Whereas we don't treat difference between the cow dung and our own fecal. So this is the kind of psychology, but I don't know any examples of where this waste can be actually used as a resource for the
DBMP or somebody was trying for something called Nagara compost. That compost coming from human fecal matter. I don't know whatever has happened to that. You have some query?
Do religion also affect the survival of the city?
Very much, very much.
After so many years,
You don't need to go to Varanasi, the oldest city of the world called Jerusalem is still today is not capable of surviving better like any other city because of religious conflicts. What year? No, in Jerusalem every day there will be a bomb here or a stone there or a death there. I don't want to adapt that here. Varanasi. Oh. No. That is under the assumption that because Varanasi is a religious city, it is better surviving. ನೀವು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರದಲ್ವಾ surviving true ಅಪ್ಪ ಹಂಗ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ
That's what you said, sir. Optimum cell size. Maybe Varanasi is optimum cell size.
True, but the fact that it is optimum and maintaining means it is not growing.
Yes.
Alva?
You wanted that. Small size.
But it is true? Is it true that it is not growing for a long time? I don't know. One has to very carefully look it up. I don't have an answer for your question. Yeah.
Shall we conclude then?
I guess so.
So, sir, I have a question, sir.
Yeah.
What is the lesson? If somebody asks us, why are some cities abundant? From cell biology.
Cell biology.
Yeah.
Well, the physics of resource flow and demand that controls the growing cities suggests that there is an facilities available. If it grows beyond that, it is sure to collapse. So better find out what is that optimum level. Okay.
Thank you, sir, for your beautiful talk. I request Dr. Natarajan Karba to give a token of appreciation to Dr. Ganeshaya. Now I request Ms. Naina to join hands.
Where is Naina?
Oh my God.
ಆನ್ಲೈನಲ್ಲಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಅಟೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅವರು ಒನ್ ಅವರ್ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅವರು ಅಲ್ಲ.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Naina. Now it's the last part of the program, that is vote of thanks. I request Ms. Sindhuja to deliver the vote of thanks.
Respected dignitaries on the of the stage, and our esteemed faculty members from different departments and institutions, my dear seniors, juniors, and friends, good evening to everyone. As the day comes to end, it is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks. First and foremost, I express my heartfelt thanks to Dr. K. N. Ganeshaya and other department faculty members to join this talk. And after listening to this talk, I got a very good inspiration of how we can link two different matters together. And so thank you, sir, for providing such inspiring and meaningful talk. Now, I also thank every other participant, both online and offline, to join together in this event and making it such an interactive program. I also thank our department faculty members and presenters for giving the department's achievement and progress in a clear and effective way. Your efforts truly matter for the collective growth of our department over past years, sir. I also thank my organizing team, Dean PGS office, for providing the conference hall, Dr. Ganesh Murthy online meet, and everyone who has helped directly or indirectly for conducting this event very smoothly. Once again, I thank everyone for making this event successful. Wishing everyone happy and successful year ahead.
Thank you so much.
ಮೈಕ್ ಇಸ್ಕೊಂಡ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡಿ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಮೈಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿದೆ ಆ ಥರ